Hi friends, hello. Welcome to my channel. My name is Katie. I'm in Warschwiggle. You may not know, but last year I thought it would be fun to plan to read 22 books in 2022 because get it, you get it. I thought this was going to be a no-brainer. You know why? Because guess how many books I read in the year of 2022? I read almost 300. I think a little under 275. I'll put the number there for your reference. I looked at this goal and these list of books and I was like, cakewalk, can totally do it. Failed spectacularly. Didn't do it. I'm gonna put right here how many books out of this list of 22 books I actually managed to read. However, as I sat down and I was like, you know what? What am I gonna read for 2023? And I realized right off the bat, not gonna do a silly, cute, these are the 23 books that I'm gonna read in 2023. I'm not doing that, not doing that. We're done. That's the old Katie. This is the new Katie. And the new Katie doesn't have time to be cute. So the way I broke it down, as you can probably see by the title, is I was like, okay, I have to at least be able to read one book a month, right? That, like, a lot of people just read one book a month and call it a day. So if I am over here reading hundreds of books a year, I can definitely commit to read at least one specific book a month. In theory, we might get to the end of this year and I screw up again. And if that's the case, then like, I don't know what to say at that point. I think I've mentioned on the channel before that I am not good at committing to certain titles. I don't know why it causes so many anxiety in me, but it does. And that's why the idea of like pulling a prompt that is a book is so nerve-wracking to me, which is why I have constructed Bookish Blossoms the way that I have. I have decided that I am going to pick 12 books, and I was very kind to myself. I picked some chunkers. I did. I picked some really chunky books, some books that are going to be a challenge for me, but then I also put in some lists of books that I'm so excited to read in 2023. Let's get into the 12 books that I am going to try to do for 2023. We'll see how it goes. One more note before we start. These books are not in any particular order. I am not ranking them based on how excited I am to read them, the genre, the author, none of that stuff. I just made a list of 12 books that I want to prioritize reading in 2023. So the first book I want to read this year, I am picking something that came out last year. It was super hyped on BookTube and BookTok. I know people have some real mixed feelings about this book, and I have intentionally stayed away from all of those reviews and all of those thoughts because I want to go into this book with a clean slate, with no preconceived notions, and that book, you probably can guess, is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I feel like a broken record at this point, but I studied at Oxford University for a semester, reading a book about a place that I have visited, that I have very fond memories about, that I just miss so much. I miss The Bird and the Baby. I miss Blackwell's. I miss the Bodleian Library. I miss the Radcam. I miss everything. I miss that city so much. And if I can chase my high and read a book that makes me feel all the Oxford feels, then I'm gonna give it a shot. Again, I know that people have some real mixed feelings about this book, and this book was totally hyped and everybody read it. And with a hyped book like this, you're gonna have some real differing opinion across social media. I specifically didn't pick it up last year because I was waiting for a paperback, because I despise hardcovers so much. And I specifically really despise hardcovers of big chunky books like this big boy. Babel by R.F. Kuang. I'm doing it. I'm gonna commit to reading it this year. Maybe I will do my own Babel video, my own little Babel expose, and I can put it out for you guys. I don't know. I just want to read a book about Oxford. Second book that I really want to get my mitts on in 2023. I really want to read the 5th volume of Fence by C.S. Pacat. The only reason I haven't got a copy of this so far is because I am waiting for my local library to get a physical copy of this book, which I feel like by the end of the year, they should. And if it is like June and they still don't have a copy of this book, I think I might physically go in there and make a request. This is a comic book series about a fencing team at this elite, uber fancy private school. Our main character is there on a scholarship. He's there on a fencing scholarship. He has a lot of family baggage that we find out as the comic book goes along. This is also a very slow burn enemies to lovers romance between our main character and his roommate, who is basically kind of like a washed up fencing kid. Even though he's still like one of the greatest fencers in the world, he's got a lot of issues too. They're made for each other. So I'm really excited to read the 5th volume of Fence. I think it's gonna be so good. I'm hoping that this volume has some really nice romance elements in it, because I think we're starting to get there, to the burn part of that slow burn that I mentioned previously. Book number 3 is Into the Riverlands by Nhi Vo. I actually put this on my TBR in November of last year. Didn't get to it. Got distracted by other things. I do really want to continue this series because I love Nhi Vo's writing, and she writes these really amazing self-contained novellas that are just so satisfying and compelling to read in one sitting. This is the 3rd book in her series about this awesome non-binary monk who basically just travels around collecting stories. Honestly, this is a novella series that I would love to buy like all the paperbacks of and then reread them and annotate them, because the prose in these novellas is just exquisite. So for my 3rd book, definitely gonna prioritize reading Into the Riverlands by Nhi Vo. My 4th book for 2023 is gonna be Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. Heartstopper is a graphic novel series about 2 boys, Charlie and Nick. And Charlie and Nick start dating. Nick eventually comes out as bisexual, and they basically just fall in love and figure out how to be in a relationship with each other. I'm so invested in their story as a couple, and also the amazing cast of characters that surround them in the novel and the community that they build as a couple. It's really beautiful. This is coming out next month in February, so I will hopefully get to read it by March. Hopefully my local library can get me a copy really soon. Book number 4, Heartstopper Volume 5 by Alice Oseman. I cannot wait. Speaking of the 5th volume of a graphic novel series that is also being released next month, I cannot wait for the next Adventure Zone graphic novel. I am a huge fan of the Adventure Zone, a big fan of the Balance Arc, Amnesty. I'm really into what Justin is doing right now with Steeplechase. I adore these graphic novels. I think they are such a beautiful adaptation of the podcast. They're very streamlined, which is great, but they're also so true to the spirit and the ethos that makes the Adventure Zone such an amazing podcast. I actually own the 4 other novels, so I will be picking this up basically the second it goes on sale, and this will definitely be something I prioritize reading in February. I'm especially excited for this volume because this is the volume where the big picture story of the podcast really starts to get fleshed out, and I can't wait to see how the graphic novel adapts it. I think it's gonna be so amazing. My last February release that I am so excited for is The Mill House Murders by Yukito Ayatsuji. This is the second novel in a series of Japanese murder mystery novels. Ayatsuji is heralded in Japan as basically revolutionizing the locked room mystery for Japanese literature. He's very important, he's very influential, and this February, they're releasing an English translation of this book for the first time ever. This book takes place after the Decagon House Murders, which I read in 2022. I genuinely enjoyed the Decagon House Murders. It was such an incredible love letter to Agatha Christie. I am definitely so excited to read this. I'm so excited that they've decided to translate the rest of the series into English. And that is confirmed, as far as I know, that this one's coming out in February. And then I think next year they're releasing the 3rd book. It might become an annual tradition of me picking up one of these books and reading it. We'll see. In March, also very soon, Katee Robert is releasing The Gargoyle's Captive, which is the 3rd book in this series that she's starting to write. Basically, the premise of this series is there's a group of human women who have fallen on hard times in some way. So, for example, in the first book, the woman is running away from an abusive spouse, and the demon that shows up is like, hey, you want me to get rid of that husband for you? And she's like, yes. All of these women make a deal with a bargainer demon, and they basically trade 7 years of their life to go live in this fantastical world where they basically agree to get assigned to different leaders of different areas that inhabit this world. I'm gonna be really honest, I didn't care for the second book, The Kraken Sacrifice. I was so excited for it, and it just wasn't my thing. I didn't really resonate with the characters the way that I had done previously. But I know that Katee Robert is an incredible writer. She writes some of the best erotica I've ever read, and she is capable of writing an amazing gargoyle romance. I am going to hold out hope that this is incredible. I know this one is going to be a shocker, but so excited for The Weaver by Tiffany Roberts. I mentioned this in my yearly wrap-up video. I mentioned this in my mid-year wrap-up. I am obsessed with the Fricks. I'm obsessed with this world that Tiffany and Robert have created. I've already planned out in my head, once there is a definitive date, I'm going to reread the trilogy to get myself prepared for The Weaver. I might make a vlog out of it. I don't know. The tentative release date is June of this year. Tiffany and Robert have mentioned that that's just kind of a guesstimate date for them. They might come out with it sooner. They might come out with it later. They don't know. Whenever it comes out, it does not matter. I am reading this book this year. It's happening. You're welcome. This is a book that I put on my list last year. And I bought it. I did all of the necessary steps to set myself up for success, and it did not happen. But I am gonna commit to this year to making it happen, because as far as I know, the second one of this has come out, and everyone says that this is an incredible book. I don't know anything about this book, and I still, to this day, have not read the synopsis. I haven't looked it up. I haven't looked up anyone's review. I just know that I want to read this book desperately. But I'm going to need to do some effort to commit to doing it. That's my problem, not yours. Anyway, with that said, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. Again, don't know, don't care. I'm gonna read this year. If I have to split it up into chunks and read it over a period of a couple months, I don't know. But I do know that reading this book is going to be a big commitment. I just need to read this book. I bought it. I took the time. I bought it. It's mine. This is my paperback copy of The Priory of the Orange Tree. And I need to read this book. I need to justify this purchase. So anyway, The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is going on the list. I need to read this book. Speaking of books that I purchased last year and desperately wanted to read and just didn't get to it, Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. I have read 25 pages of this book thus far, which is, as you can probably tell, not the whole book. I have adored what I have read so far. I just need to do it. I just need to sit down and go, this is what you're reading this month, Katie. This is your book. This is the book that you are committing to. This book is a collection of observations of this man who finds himself living in a house that has no end. There are hundreds of rooms, thousands of rooms, and he is trying to find the end of the house, basically. I need to read this book. I need to know what happens. I am so invested in our main character. I feel like something is going to show up in the house that basically challenges his reality up to that point, and he's going to have to figure that out. I don't know, but it's delightful. His voice, his diction, his perspective is so sincere and sweet. It's great. Very similar to Niveau, Susanna Clarke just knows how to write a sentence and just make it so good. Number 11, we're almost there. I desperately want to read Galletta. I think I said that correctly, Galletta by Madeline Miller. If you are living under a rock and don't know who Madeline Miller is, let me tell you, she wrote Circe. She wrote The Song of Achilles. She is one of the most famous authors in our generation at the moment. She writes these incredible retellings, reimaginings of classic Greek myths. Like a lot of authors on this list, she just writes the most beautiful sentences. Her prose is outstanding. Adored Circe. Circe is one of my favorite books of all time. I cannot get enough of this woman's writing. So when I saw that she recently released a novella, I was like, yes, please. I don't care what this is a retelling of. I don't care who this is about. I don't need to know any specifics, except that Madeline Miller wrote a new book and I must consume it. Once it gets released in paperback, I will buy it, I will consume it, I will annotate it, I will adore it. So excited for this book. Last, but certainly not least, I desperately want to read My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This was published 2 years ago. So this is a backlist title. Stephen Graham Jones has written a lot of horror, and I, to this point, have never picked up any of his books. But that is going to change this year because I want to become more of a horror reader. My best friend Mahogany has agreed to buddy read this with me because I bought her a copy for Christmas, and we decided we're gonna read this together, we're gonna talk about it, we're gonna enjoy it. She's a huge horror fan. I would like to become a huge horror fan, so I am going to pick this up. I know that people have feelings about this book. Some people loved it, some people didn't, but I'm hoping that I'm on the side of people who absolutely loved it. All right, friends, that is it. Those are the books that I am so pumped to read for 2023. Let me know what you're really excited to pick up this year. As always, friends, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and have a great day. Bye.